welcome to Honest Faith Conversations. Welcome to the conversation. As always, I am your co-host, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I'm Kathy Covarrubias, and today we're talking about Fallout 4.
So I know that it's been a while for some people. Some of you have already finished the game a few times over. It's been a little over a year that it's been released. I believe that it came out in November of 2015. And just to give you a brief summary of the game is...
Or if you have never played Fallout or any of the other Fallouts, but...
Yeah. The game takes place after World War III, as it were. After this big kind of cataclysmic event that happened after the resource wars of the 21st century.
Yeah, essentially, every country that had nukes used them.
Yes.
Like, all within a matter of, like, a few hours. And so, needless to say, the world was essentially destroyed. And so this is, like, takes place, I don't know, a couple hundred years afterwards.
About 200 years afterwards, depending on the game. In the first game, it's a little bit sooner. Second game, they all kind of take place in different timelines, except for 3 and 4, which are very, very similar timelines that they're kind of going on at the same time. Really, what I want to talk about primarily for this game is a lot of the choices. There is in this game a very big kind of gray area with a lot of these choices, and I think that what the developers were going for seemed to be a little bit more of a moral ambiguity with your character, with the decisions that you make. Mm-hmm. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But there are some major plot points that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. For one, we had a lot more factions to choose from than previous, like who we're going to align with.
Yeah. And it really did come to a head in this game rather than in previous games where you could be a part of
everything. Yeah,
the Brotherhood of Steel, and also be part of the Railroad, because Railroad was in 3, but it was very brief mention of them, and it was just a kind of side quest plot line that you started off on what's the name of that city? I can't remember. We're talking about 4, not 3, but...
I can't remember what 3 was in. It's not Las Vegas, because that was after 3.
It's Washington, D.C. It's
yes.
The carrier, the city that's in
it
the
doesn't
carrier.
matter. Let's move
on. But I think the major point of this one is kind of focusing on your character, which is the character that's kind of going through this quest to find their child, and whether or not you picked the male or the female of the couple, it's still the main kind of plot quest point.
Yep, and it's still a son.
Yeah,
in either one.
And so you're looking to rescuing the child, and a lot of this kind of the gray area takes place in what lengths a parent would go to rescue their child. Mm-hmm. And this is a lot of gray area in there, especially when it comes to some of the choices that you have to make, like going after the bounty hunter that killed your spouse,
and also took your child.
Yeah, and took your child, which he reveals to you the big plot point twist of the fact that it's been more. Your child is probably full grown, and that you're not. That happened years ago when they took your child. So.
Yep.
And also the big part of it is the end. The end is a big gray area, because you do have, unlike some of the other games that we've played, I'm looking at you, Mass Effect. You do have very big differentiations with the plot points. You can choose, or the endings. You can choose an ending where you align with your son. You can choose an ending where you align with one of the other factions, and each of those factions kind of has their their moral ambiguities and their kind of different religious kind of leanings.
Well, and
we'll get to that.
Yeah, and each faction like has, they have very good points. Like you can align yourself pretty easily with any of these. I feel like a normal person could align with any of these.
Mm-hmm. And we'll get to that here in the next section. But there's also some minor plot points that I want to kind of bring up that we can talk about. The first one is the Minutemen, which is one of the factions you can align yourself with. You can have one of the endings with them. But I would say that they're more of a background faction. I don't think that they were fully fleshed out.
Well, no, because they're still kind of... Okay, so they were a big thing. The Minutemen in Fallout 4 were a very, very big deal. And then every single one of them dies. And then it's just the one Minuteman who is now trying to recruit. And so he meets you and asks you to kind
Preston
of start...
Garvey.
Yes. And oh my gosh, if I have to go rescue one more kidnapped person, I swear to God, like every other person is like, this person got kidnapped or there's raiders over here. Like, I just, come on.
Well, he made you the general. He made you the leader, and he's still sending you out on tasks.
I know. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I know, and you can't be like, no, man, you go.
Yeah. And even after, I mean, it really doesn't make any sense because he should be the general. He's the one that was he's been in a Minuteman longer than a minute.
Longer than a minute.
So, I mean, that one, they have some cool gadgets, I guess. Like, their fort's pretty cool. Like, I like to, hide down in their bunker, like, occasionally. Trying to get it was a pain in the butt, though.
Yeah, with especially going up against the... Mirelurk Queen.
Well, and it wasn't even the queen. It was the stupid little hatchlings that kept on getting me. I was just like, leave me alone.
I wish there was like a stomp button on the controller. Stomp.
Yeah, I would have killed him faster.
But I kind of bringing them up in the minor plot point here is because of the fact that what they are trying to do is that they're trying to bring about freedom for the Wasteland. Is that they're kind of wanting people to do their own thing in the Wasteland, but they would police when they needed to police.
Yeah, well, and it's more of a like, I'll help you if you help me kind of a mentality.
Yeah, and so I mean, especially with the farmers that are going up against raiders and all this other stuff.
But why am I always the person that has to help them? Why can't they help out the farmer that I just helped?
Yeah, I know. And even after you recaptured the castle or whatever they call it,
I think it's the castle.
Yeah, and even after you recapture that, I mean, they've recruited people. Why can't they send those people out to go do it?
I don't know.
I mean, you can put guards at different settlements, but that's a long story. Another minor plot point that I want to talk about here in this episode is the drug use. There is... I want to bring this up because this was one of the only things that caught my attention. I did a very short-lived Twitch stream channel about faith in Fallout, and so you at one point in time it's all been deleted from the website there now, but at one point in time you could watch my entire first playthrough and my commentary about the faith in there, which there wasn't a whole lot. There's a lot of dead space, and did not make for a very good Twitch channel.
Well,
but
no.
The one thing that came up was the drug use, and especially with the woman who was with the Minutemen.
Yep.
And she could foresee things, but she could foresee them by using drugs, by getting into this altered state. And,
And they were true things, too. It wasn't like they were... I mean, there was proof that she actually, could foresee things.
Well, at one point you have to do it to move on with the main story quest.
Yep.
And I think that's the major thing, is that dealing with that is should you do this if it moves you forward? And there was a point where I just said, no more. You're done. You're clean. I'm not going to give you any more. Which was, for me, that was my moral choice. Which this was after I used her, and so we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Then the last point that I want to talk about is survival, is the lengths that people will go to survive, and I think this is not just as I'm going to open up the part where we start talking about these things. Is I titled it Schadenfreude, which it's not just that, because those are things that are happening in our world today. Is people do go to like extreme lengths just to survive, or at least their concept of surviving, and I want to bring that up because that's ultimately, I think, what we're doing is, by playing these games, is kind of is going into this whole kind of Schadenfreude kind of experience. Is we're taking pleasure from the pain of others. Is that we are role playing in the apocalypse. Which, some of these things that are happening, they're actually happening in real life places, like in Somalia with people who have resorted to piracy, resorted to raiding, and doing these other things. And I mean, we've had, the Vikings long ago. That's kind of their whole thing was, let's raid coastal villages by intimidating people and not really doing full violence. And
even
stuff,
the cannibals too. I mean, there's been even the tribes that still use cannibalism do it in typically a like religious ceremony ways. But I mean, you have the was it the rugby team that resulted in cannibalism?
Oh, the soccer team?
I thought they were rugby.
The one that was South America and they plane crashed. Yeah, that was soccer.
Was it soccer?
Yeah. So a movie about that called Alive.
I want to... Okay. I want to say that I was listening to another podcast and they corrected and said actually they were a rugby team.
Oh.
But you know what? While we're talking, I'm going to Google this real quick and I'll let you guys know.
You're going to fact check me.
I'm going to fact check us.
So that,
is what I'm going to do.
So that we're not giving you any alternative facts.
Can I say something really quick too about fact checking? So last week we talked about how Toby was wearing a fat suit, or the actor who played him had gained a lot of weight. He's actually wearing a fat suit.
Yeah.
Just correcting ourselves right there and moving on. Sorry, I'm getting off track.
So yeah. Anyway, you're role playing in the apocalypse here, and you're kind of encountering a lot of these things that, and I think that's what video games are a wonderful art form for. Is that they bring up some of these moral questions in your own life. They bring up some of the things that, maybe you haven't encountered that situation yet, but, it kind of gives you practice for the real world. And I know that there are a lot of people who kind of advocate for the fact that video games make you more violent. And granted, Fallout 4 is not necessarily a non-violent game. I have to look up whether or not you can do a non-violent playthrough, a pacifist playthrough, where you do not kill anything or hurt anything. I mean, I think it probably could be possible.
Rugby. I was right.
Oh, it was rugby. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it was just in the movie that they were a soccer team.
Yeah, probably need to Americanize it. Because they're like, rugby, what is that thing? Anyway, sorry, continue.
Actually, rugby's kind of gained popularity in the
United States. But back when they did the movie, it wasn't.
Yeah,
most people didn't know what rugby was.
So, I think that really, in essence, these video games kind of, they're an exercise in developing empathy. And this is like we talked about in our very first episode when you talked about Harry Potter, was that it taught you how to empathize for people who are different than you, and how to kind of utilize, or not utilize, but see the gifts that they bring to certain situations. And that's essentially what I think that video games do. They do for us, is they really kind of help us to empathize with certain situations and certain people. And
that's if you choose to, because I don't know.
Yeah, that's if you choose to.
Because usually this is how I usually play video games. Like my first run through, I would pick the choices that if faced with that in real life, like I hope that that's the choice that I would make. Now, usually during the second run through, I go the complete opposite. Like I'm a complete a-hole. Can I say that? Is that okay?
Yeah,
okay.
That's not...
All right, okay.
You don't have to put the
I want to say the other
on
word, but... So, yeah, I just go and I'm just like, the devil incarnate. So, I don't know. I think most people might align with me.
Well, the thing is, and the thing about this one, Fallout 4, is it does not have the karmic systems that Fallout 3 had.
Mm-mm.
Or
even other video games have.
Yeah. And I just found out, like, this weekend that Mass Effect Andromeda is not going to have the Renegade and... what is the other one? Shoot. Anyway, they're not going to have the karmic system in their game either, which that to me just kind of like why I like that fact is that you get points for being karmic. That either way, if you're either going to be the renegade and you're going to and it reflects upon your character.
Mm-hmm.
In Fallout 3, it wasn't very much a physical reflection, but it was more points. In reflection upon you. Like people, when they met you, they treated you better because you were a good person, according to the karmic system. But in this one, in Fallout 4, I think they left it out because a lot of these things are gray areas, and so let's talk about those plot points that I wanted to talk about there, like the factions.
Mm-hmm.
The very interesting thing about them is that each of them are kind of like their own religious system.
Yes.
I mean, you do have religions in the Wasteland.
A couple of them, actually.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in our controversial issues part because some of them are a little controversial, like the Children of Adam, which they kind of delve into that more in the DLC.
And when we get that, I have a funny story about the Children of Adam with my encounter. But continue. Okay.
So, I mean, with like the Brotherhood of Steel, who think that the synths are taking technology way too far.
Mm-hmm.
You have this kind of religious system that they have is that it's against their religion to use technology in that way. They're
to advance technology to the point to where it's sentient beings.
Yeah, that's a whole bastardization, and I mean that can be very loosely. I mean it's a very it's not the strict analogy that they were going for, but I assume, but it can be an analogy for the LGBT community, where it's that they think that what they're doing is a complete abomination,
mm-hmm.
and so there's the religion in that, and I think that each of these factions kind of bring out a little bit of your morality system. This is what I mean by, it's an exercise in empathy. It's trying to figure out which. It's giving you a lot of shades of gray, and it's trying to give you a chance to figure out which shade of gray fits you.
Yeah, and I think part of that too, like when you first meet Valentine,
mm-hmm.
like, and you hear more of his story, you realize like what a struggle it is to be Valentine, and he really feels that struggle, like. He knows the memories that he has aren't his.
Yeah. Like,
they're real memories. They're real memories of a man who did live, but they're not his. And he even, when you finish out his plot line, because in each companion has their own thing.
Yeah.
When you finish out his, he brings up the point, like, I know that these memories aren't mine, but at least the memories that I've had, like with you traveling around the wasteland, are real.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's important to him. So, I don't know, that kind of like tugged at my heartstrings. I'm like, you're not a real like human being, but you clearly like can think complexly enough. I actually tried to make him a romantic interest, and it didn't work. Just thought I'd let you guys all know.
Yeah, I didn't even write that in our summary here. Is that the romantic interest thing is another thing for the Bethesda products. You have a lot of kind of they don't go as far as other companies do, like shoot, what's the company that does Sky? Well, they do a little bit in Skyrim, in the Elder Scrolls series, but it's not as far as the ones like in Dragon Age and that company that I'm thinking of. I brought up Mass Effect like several times already, but
that's okay.
That's that company. Why am I BioWare?
Yes, BioWare.
There we go. Which is now owned by EA, like everything else on the planet.
Well, it could be, Disney, like everything else on the planet.
Oh, that's very true. The plot points of going after your son, and that when I first played through this, Kathy was pregnant. We were pregnant with Peter, and last week we really kind of went into that story, and so that we both had a lot of anxiety during that time. So I had anxiety while I'm playing through Fallout and trying to think of what lengths would I go to save my son. And there's that point with the bounty hunter where I was really angry. I'm like, I'm going to just kill this guy. There's a choice to keep him alive. I wouldn't do that. Thinking if I would do that in real life, is that if somebody were to take my son, would I resort to that kind of violence? And I don't think I could in real life come to that violence. And if you've ever met me, that I'm a pacifist. In fact, I started a huge big thing when websites had web boards and they were all the rage. I started a huge big argument in a youth ministry web board about war and about pacifism. Is that I was arguing that God and Jesus are pacifists. And it started this huge thing. And I was really surprised at the fact that how many Christians actually will defend the fact that, no, Jesus is violent, that God is violent. And I'm like, people viewed God as violent in the Old Testament, but Jesus was not violent.
Yeah, and people people think that pacifism doesn't work, but historically, pacifism has worked. I mean, pacifism was actually used by a whole sneaking country in World War II.
Yeah.
And it worked. Like, not one Jew from that country was killed. I mean, look it up. I don't know. That's just one big example as my defense of pacifism.
Well, we'll come back to pacifism here in the controversial issues because obviously that is a controversial issue. And in the end, the one big thing that really troubled me about the end was that it was so gray that it was hard for me to do the ending for anybody. I didn't want to go along with the son because I was like, no, I can't enslave people. I can't be putting people at risk and enslaving a large group of people just because I want you back. I want my son back. And then I was also like, I don't want to get rid of this think tank, and I would love to like kind of run the
CIT.
Yeah, CIT, the institute, in a good way, and have those people thinking of good things for the wasteland and helping the wasteland, but there wasn't that option. And especially when the railroad got involved. I mean, the Minutemen probably, the Brotherhood, I'm pretty sure would not let that happen either. Would kind of could destroy the institute as well.
Oh yeah. If they had a chance to destroy the institute, like with the press of a button, they would.
Well, yeah, and the Brotherhood is kind of they're kind of pretty violent anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, so I myself aligned with the railroad. I was like, I'm going to go with the railroad because they're helping to free slaves, as it were. And, whether or not you see... It took me a while to kind of really figure out how I felt about the synths. Is that, sentient life is sentient life, even if we've created it. And this was something that and again, here's another reference to Mass Effect, is that with the Geth, that was something that I found it hard to keep them, remain alive as the Geth, and that instead of destroying them all, which there's that option at the end with aligning with the Reapers, even though that's still, I can go on for days and days about the ending for Mass Effect 3, but it was still one of those things that I wanted to keep the synths alive, the ones that wanted to be out, the ones that wanted to be on their own, to live their own lives. And
well, can you blame them too? I mean, they were given human memories.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was a big moral issue for me, and part of my faith from that was trying to think of, how is that in our own real world, if we were to create AI, if we were to create artificial intelligence, and if it became sentient, if we got to that point where
we created a bunch of Jarvises.
Or no, more like if we created. See, a good example, because in Western cinema, there is not a lot of good robots or good AI.
No, because even there's a.
I mean, Ex Machina is still along the lines of she is not a good AI.
Oh no, she's terrifying.
See the same thing with
sorry,
Skynet.
spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Sorry, we should have said that, but yeah, no, she's terrifying. Like she's too human, but also she's also kind of in that weird uncanny realm because like some of her movements are definitely more robotic. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, the actress did a fantastic job. I mean, but Alan Turing, who by the way, great movie, The Imitation Game. It's on Netflix. You can go check it out. Alan Turing, had this idea that AI could help us, that would be, good AI. And I think that, a lot of cultures that are different from our own, from the Western culture, that they can, imagine an AI that is good and helpful and that is sentient and that, life that we create.
Well, I think that's true too. I mean, the AI, whatever it is programmed to be, like good or bad, is going to be how it's going to be. Just like, I mean, people, you can program people to be good or to be bad.
When they become self-aware, when they have that sentience kind of thing, is that would they go against their programming kind of idea? That's what all of Western culture is. Robot movies and AI movies have been about.
Oh, and we haven't watched Westworld yet, so.
Yeah, that's on our list of things to get to, and we'll eventually have an episode on that.
I just feel kind of weird watching it, like, with the baby awake.
Yeah.
We'll watch other things, but that's kind of...
So, anyway, let's move on, because we've got a little bit of... Let's move on before we have to kind of close out there. But coming back to the Minutemen, what I wanted to talk about with them was that... Their thing, I like their idea of kind of a utopic wasteland, was that rebuilding the wasteland to become something that like it was before. And I know that's kind of that's a staple in a lot of post-apocalyptic literature and movies and media, is that returning to something like it was before, and that most of those people are always killed off. Because it will never be like it was before. Even like resembling it, it won't resemble it.
No. That's why I'm not a big fan of Make America Great Again.
That's a controversial issue. So.
Sorry. Well, are we in there yet? Are we in the controversial issues section yet?
No. We're talking about the Minutemen. But I wanted to talk about that fact of kind of an more idealized version of how things were. And I think that on some level that is kind of respectable. And I think that's part of, as Christians, what we should be striving for. We should be striving for the kingdom. We should be striving for what Jesus claimed was the utopic society.
But the thing with that is it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So we're not going backwards in time.
Yeah. It's moving forward in a different direction. And so, I mean, a lot of that, and especially, I think I can come to this in the controversial issues. Let's just move to the controversial issues. We'll throw out the drug use thing, because I already kind of talked about that a little bit. That was a little bit gray area, and the survival thing. But So let's open up our controversial issues segment.
Since I kind of tend to always want to talk about it.
Yeah. Coming back to the religion in the wasteland, the children of Adam, I think, are kind of that kind of picture of Christians, and this is what I want to kind of hit on a little bit with what I was talking about with the Minutemen.
And children of Adam were the ones that were in the theater, like the outdoor theater. They're meeting out there.
I think so, and they're also in the very radioactive swamp area when you're trying to get.
Yes.
Yeah. So, they are kind of like the Christian kind of sect in this, which I think that maybe, but they're kind of those closed-minded religious people that we've talked about before, over and over and over again, where they kind of have their reasoning for why things are happening and why things have happened. And, like right away once you meet them that they're completely delusional. Except for in Fallout 3, you can actually go along with them their thing was setting off the bomb, and you can also align with them. And so, Children of Adam, they are, I think that they're very much along with the lines of, cultish behavior. And, that this is, I have this in the controversial issues is because I think that a lot of Western churches kind of tend to be very cultish in the way that they...
they can become very cultish.
Yeah, convert their believers. Is that they don't want them questioning. They don't want them, kind of thinking anything outside of, their set religious dogma.
Yeah.
And this is what I see from the Children of Adam as well. So I think this is a controversial issue because I think that a lot of Western churches have kind of become that, and especially nowadays with what I'm going to call Trumpism, is that they want to believe that the Republican Party is God's party, and that could not be farther from the truth. That God is not Republican. God is also not a Democrat. That God could care less about our politics. That God's loyalty is to God's kingdom and not to anything else. Mm-hmm. And anyway, this is a whole big gray area. The whole game is shades of gray. There is no like black and white, good and bad answers to any of the questions that you're faced with. And I think that when we get into that thinking that there are black and white answers to any question, to any issue, that we've ultimately lost. I think that the entire world is gray. Everything that we face is gray, and that's okay. It's okay to be in a gray area. It's okay to just deal, to just realize that nothing is perfect.
Yeah, well, and it's still, it makes things a lot more interesting, that's for sure.
And, not even talking about the movie 50 Shades of Grey, because that, is cultish behavior as well, by the way. But that's a different topic for a different day, and I don't want to have to watch that movie. I don't want to watch
it. We're not doing an episode
on that. So please do not recommend that we do an episode on that.
Even if you do, we're not going to watch it.
Or read the books.
Nope.
Maybe an audio. No, not even an audiobook.
Nope.
But I want to talk about the tagline for the Fallout games because it is a controversial issue. Is war never changes. And I think it's because we're human beings that happens. Is that we're always going to want to take advantage of somebody else. Is mm-hmm. We're always going to think that our interests are more important than somebody else's. And that's why we want to believe that, Jesus is not a pacifist, because, we want Jesus to take violence against our enemies. And in fact, the readings for next week are liturgical readings. By the way, I do a liturgical reading channel on YouTube. You can look that up sometime, Expressive Spiritual Readings. Plug. But the readings for next week are about Jesus saying, "You've heard it said to hate your enemy and to love love those who love you. And he's saying, no. Pray for those who persecute you. Mm-hmm. Love them as well. And I think that ultimately speaks to like Jesus being a pacifist, is that Jesus is saying, no. Justice comes in its own way. Is that, this whole passage is about turning the other cheek and stuff like that. Is that turning the cheek doesn't mean that you're letting somebody take advantage of you. It means you're making them see you as a human being. Is that you're there that helping somebody else to realize that you are more complex than the simple idea that they had of you. And I think ultimately that's what pacifism is. Pacifism is imagining other people, other things, that the world is more complex than your own simple imagining of it. That you don't take violence against something else because that other thing is more complex than you can imagine it.
Well, and this is not just a Christian theology. This is spread out through almost every single other major religion in the world. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to strive for peace. Some people think that means that everybody on earth must then be exactly like them. Yeah. That's the only way to peace. But there's so many examples to prove otherwise. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that Miguel and I, we have friends who are Muslim. We have friends who are Jewish. We have friends who are atheists. We have friends who are Wiccan. We have a whole community of varying different backgrounds and different beliefs. And the fact that we can still be friends with them and it doesn't cause any kind of rift in our relationship with them just goes to show that it's possible.
Yeah. And peace is attainable in our time. I think that you hit on that perfect point there with that, is that peace does not mean that everybody is uniform. Is that across the board that everything is homogenous. Mm-hmm. That I think that our diversity is what makes us great, especially in the little things. I mean, the wonderful thing about Cleveland is that it was made up of immigrants from all over the world, and those immigrants celebrate the places that they were from, the ethnicities that they are. In fact, there's a little Italy in Cleveland, which has fantastic Italian food and bakeries and all kinds of stuff there. And I think that's wonderful, is that they are still part of America. They're still a part of Cleveland, and they celebrate that Italian heritage, but they also celebrate the fact that they're American.
Well, and they also invite other people to the celebration as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what is great, is that when you can celebrate that diversity, celebrate something else that makes you different, but in a good way that's not divisive, that's a wonderful thing.
Well, and the great thing about Cleveland too, historically, we have been very welcoming to newcomers into the United States. Whether they be refugees or just people migrating here. Cleveland has always been there with open arms, hey, we're not as bad as everybody thinks we are. We're pretty cool. Yeah. We have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We have LeBron.
By the way, if you've ever seen the movie Trainwreck, I think LeBron does a great job of publicizing Cleveland in that movie.
Cleveland's for the whole family.
So we're going to just wrap up now. As always, go check out the website, thehonestfaith.com.
Yeah, we have blogs there. There's videos.
Yeah, and a storefront.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's new.
Yeah, that's new. So go and shop some, too.
Yeah, there's mugs and there's T-shirts and
if there's something that, any program art that we have used that you would like to see on a mug or on a T-shirt or anything else like that, let us know. And always send us your suggestions of what we should watch or we should play or what we should, media we should consume to talk about on the show at emailing me at honestfaithconvos@gmail.com.
Yep.
And that's also available on the website. And tell your friends about our show, because we really only have 2 subscribers, but so many of you have listened to the show.
We love you.
So thank you for listening to the show, and thank you for sharing it with everybody else. And we got some wonderful feedback this week, and there was a first feedback, like good, honest feedback, and it was fantastic. It was awesome. So please send us feedback. We love it. And anyway, as always, come and join the conversation.